Hey, what's up everybody? Jake here and welcome to the hobby. I thought we'd do something a little bit different today. On a weekly basis, you guys get a ton of videos talking about what kind of Pokemon cards you should be picking up, but I thought I would take a twist on that and I thought we'd talk about some Pokemon cards that you might actually want to sell from your own collection. Before we get into specific items that I would actually consider starting to sell, I would say in the big general sense, if you're just looking to sell some products, I would start with products that I don't really think are gonna fit into my collections. These are items or cards that I don't think I can properly display or don't really make sense inside of my collection. Big example is that if you're a huge Blastoise collector and you just have a random Charizard card, maybe that Charizard card is one that you're looking to offload so you can get some cooler Blastoise cards, cards that would be better for your display, cards that you would have a more vested interest in having inside of your collection long term. That's what I see for a lot of collectors, is that they have duplicates, items inside of their collections that they don't really want or don't really think they'll ever display, and those are some of the general items that I would start considering letting go of. So that was kind of the cop-out answer. So I'm going to talk about some of my hot takes on items that I would actually consider offloading if I have additional copies of, or I just don't think are going to fit inside of my collection. And the first big group of items that I would actually consider letting go are some older booster boxes. I know that's an absolute shocker. Why would you want to sell some older booster boxes? Because if they're out of print, they can only go up in value. And that's not exactly what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a trend where some older booster boxes have really stagnated in value. They have simply not climbed up at all. We're talking about sets from the XY era and Sun and Moon era. And some examples that I can bring up are something like XY Evolutions or Sun and Moon Burning Shadows. People are simply not that interested in these sets, and there are still a ton of copies of these sealed booster boxes out there. They are simply not that rare. XY Evolutions, you can pick up a booster box right now on the secondary market for right around $800, which is very expensive. But you know what else? 3 years ago, XY Evolutions booster boxes were still going for $800. It has not budged at all in 3 years. In that same span of time, a team up booster box has gone from $200 to over $2,000. So 3 years ago, for the same price as an XY Evolutions booster box, you could have picked yourself up 4 Sun and Moon team up booster boxes, and that would have given you so much more additional value to trade up inside of your collection nowadays. It is a really pivotal, important point to collect the right item that you think are going to go up in value and holding them long term, especially if they're significantly more rare. Because I'm going to tell you right now, inside of your collection, it's a lot more exciting to have a team up booster box than an XY Evolutions booster box. And another big reason that I don't think some of these older booster boxes are not going to really go up in value long term, they may go up steadily simply because they become more rare, but I don't think they're going to be that exciting of a collectible to hold long term. And that's because the dynamic of collecting Pokemon cards and the pack opening experience has completely shifted so much in a brand new direction that I don't think a lot of collectors can even predict, because the Pokemon company has simply driven it in that direction, and that is with the introduction of alt art cards. Alt art cards have been a complete game changer. It completely redefined what it means to display Pokemon cards, because back in the day, displaying holo rare cards and a couple of ultra rare cards were what you could really do, but nowadays there are so many cool cards. It's completely changed how even I display Pokemon cards. There are so many gorgeous trainer gallery, art gallery, illustration rare cards that I think deserve to be shown off. And honestly, with the pack opening experience that we are seeing from modern Pokemon card sets, set from the late Sword and Shield era, set from the modern Scarlet and Violet era, there is absolutely no reason why you would ever go back in time and open up a Sun and Moon base booster box, a Burning Shadows booster box, or an XY Evolutions booster boxes. Besides getting absolutely destroyed in value if you were to ever crack open these older booster boxes, the pack opening experience on these older booster boxes are simply not going to be as fun as the modern stuff. The modern stuff has simply captivated audiences so much better, and I do think besides having some of these older booster boxes simply for obscurity reasons, simply because you can say that you have a sealed XY Evolutions booster box or have yourself a sealed XY based booster box, there's not actually that much there that you truly want to collect. So long term, I would say if you have one of these older booster boxes, you can sell them on the secondary market and you're probably not going to miss out on much. My hot takes is that these older booster boxes simply are not going to climb at the same pace as some more exciting collectibles. The second group of cards that I would actually consider selling, and this one might surprise some of you because it's some of my favorites, and that includes Japanese promo cards as well as modern full art cards. Why would you consider selling these cards right now? The biggest reason why I would consider selling some of these cards right now is because simply they've climbed 200 to 300% in value over the past couple of months. And honestly, whenever a collectible has climbed up to that level over the course of a couple of months, you can't expect them to eventually go down to a normalized average. Will they ever go down to the same low as they started? Probably not, but it usually is a good indicator that if something jumps up 300% within a couple of months, that it's usually an emotional investment, and in that scenario, it's usually a good time for you to be a logical collector and say, listen, this is simply too much. I should start cashing out some of these products so I can pick up other collectibles down the line. It's completely normal to sell off a very high-end collectible so you can add additional items to your collection, especially items that you really want to display. If there are duplicate cards, if there are cards that you simply do not want inside of your collection, now may be a good time to start offloading of them. I had a recent conversation with another big Pokemon card collector, and he just sold his complete collection of Scream promo cards in PSA 10 for $15,000. Now these cards are absolutely gorgeous, but as he stated, $15,000 is a lot of money that he can do a lot of really cool stuff with, and that includes collecting other great Pokemon cards. And this brings up another great point, which is if you have a lot of high-end graded 10 cards inside of your collection, perhaps you are okay with actually doing the opposite of what most collectors would say, which is actually downgrading your cards. If you have a complete set of PSA 10, perhaps you are okay with some PSA 9s. PSA 9 cards are usually significantly cheaper for pretty much the exact same cards. The difference between a 9 and a 10 are very, very minuscule. It's almost a psychological effect if you truly enjoy a 10 or not. It's simply okay to sell off your PSA 10 to get yourself a PSA 9 copy. In this scenario, by selling off his PSA 10 complete Scream promo set and buying a PSA 9, he's able to add a ton of money to his personal collection where he can buy a lot more cool products, and he can still pick up a complete PSA 9 set to pretty much have the exact same collection again, while still having a ton of money to pick up other booster boxes, to pick up other cards, and do all kinds of really cool stuff with. So in an interesting scenario, sometimes it's okay to actually downgrade your collection. You still have pretty much the exact same card, so you're really not missing out on much, but at the same time, you have a lot more money to work with some cool stuff if that's what you're currently in need of. Now that I've talked about some cards that I would actually consider selling, let me give you guys a disclaimer for a group of cards that I would not consider selling right now. And that includes vintage Pokemon cards, both graded, ungraded, and even sealed products. The vintage Pokemon card market has reached a major slump right now where, simply speaking, most modern collectors don't care about the vintage market that much. A lot of people are saying cards like base set Charizard are simply too boring, and there's not a ton of collectors that are excited to collect some of these older cards from 20 to 25 years ago. So what I would say is, honestly, it's a complete buyer's market right now. If you're a collector that's really into vintage cards, the market is really affordable right now. There are a ton of collectors that are selling vintage cards for dirt cheap prices that are as low as 80% off their all-time highs from 2 or 3 years ago, which is insanely cheap prices. So if you think you missed out on the experience 2 or 3 years ago, right now the vintage market is absolutely at its bottom point. It's a great time to pick up just a ton of really cool vintage cards, especially if you're into PSA 7, 8s, or 9. If you're not really that into getting a gem mint card, and that's completely okay because we're talking about really, really minuscule issues when it comes to 7, 8s, or 9s. They are almost essentially the same, especially a 9 and a 10. They are so close that sometimes the 9s and the 10s are indistinguishables. And there's plenty of 10s out there that I definitely think deserve to be 9s. So in that scenario, if you're someone that's really into vintage, definitely pick up some cool vintage cards. And I would try to stay away from selling vintage products right now because you're gonna miss out. There's just so much cheap stuff right now. You're gonna lose a ton of money from selling vintage stuff. So right now, I would say an area that I would actually avoid selling cards in would be vintage. All right, everybody, that's the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comment section if you agree or disagree with my thoughts. I know a lot of collectors have a ton of really cool hot takes when it comes to what is something that they would actually sell and what is something that they would keep long term. This is a really subjective area, so I would love to hear you guys' opinion. Maybe you think I'm completely wrong and that you should hold on to an XY Evolutions or Sun and Moon Burning Shadows booster boxes for the next 5 to 10 years. I would love to hear your opinion on why. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys next time.